Good morning, everyone. In my time as a wildlife photographer, I've had the amazing opportunity to see some awesome animals and capture some pretty fun images as a result. In today's video, I'm going to share with you how I got some of my personal favorite images, the tips and techniques that helped me to capture these special moments. So, if you want to turn your images from this to this, be sure to follow along in this week's video. Let's get into it. As I go through some of my personal favorite images that I've taken, I invite you to consider some of yours. Think about the process that took place behind the scenes, whether it was a mental process or a physical process. I'd love to hear your own tips and techniques that have aided you in your wildlife photography to capture some of your favorite images. Let us know down in the comments. This video is going to be full of information, and it would be fun if you could add to that as well. Without further ado, let's get into it. When asked what my favorite species to photograph is, the answer is quite simple: foxes. I've spent more time looking for, observing, and photographing foxes over the years than probably every other species combined. I've had the privilege of photographing every species of North American fox over the years, and through much time and effort have become quite familiar with their various adaptations and characteristics that make each species unique, and have come to know and recognize behavioral patterns and common habits that each of these fox species have. By learning through personal observation and experience, I've been able to learn things about these foxes that I've never read in any book or seen on any nature program. This intimate knowledge allows me to better predict probable behavior, which then allows me to best set myself up for the photo that I want before something happens. One evening, while photographing a family of kit foxes, I was able to put this hard-earned knowledge to use. The baby foxes were in a stage of their development when they became extremely curious about the world around them, but these babies were also big enough in their development to feel bold and confident for brief periods exploring the world away from the den on their own, unsupervised. This combination of curiosity and boldness peaks at a certain age with these young foxes, and I was able to get a series of images as one of the young curiously yet boldly approached me and my camera to see what we were about. My favorite image came as this curious fox snuck towards me through the grass. I had been able to predict what would happen, and so was able to set myself up in the best spot possible beforehand to capture this image. I found that whenever possible, it's wise to observe wildlife from a distance without them knowing you're there, to see and document truly wild behavior, patterns, and habits. That way, when you're photographing them, you know what is natural and what isn't, when they're stressed and when they're not. Observe, learn, and record what you learn. In my personal experience, this is the best thing that you can do to improve your wildlife photography. If you've seen my previous videos here on YouTube, you're probably thinking, there's probably going to be some bear pictures added in today's video. Well, you're absolutely right. A couple of summers ago, while out with the bears in Alaska, I awoke to some incredible conditions. A layer of fog blanketed the landscape, the sky was clear, and the sun was about to rise. Knowing what was about to happen, I quickly gathered my things and set out in search of bears or whatever wildlife I could find. I quickly found some bears just as the sun rose, turning everything around me to a vibrant orange. The photographs from that morning are still some of my favorites that I've ever taken. We've heard so many times as wildlife photographers that you want the light behind you as you photograph a subject, and I've met multiple photographers that will not go out and photograph wildlife if the conditions are not perfect. All I can say to this is, your loss. If you know how to use whatever light you have to work with, no matter where the sun is in relation to both you and your subject, your photography will greatly improve as a result. Don't inhibit your growth as a wildlife photographer because of a set of silly rules or because the conditions aren't perfect. Instead, be creative and learn to use whatever light you have to work with to make your images more eye-catching. If you want to know some photography exercises that you can learn at home to develop these skills, I'll put another video in the description that you can check out when you're done with this one. Come join me in Brazil's vast Pantanal as we search for regal jaguars and the other plentiful wildlife that inhabit the area. Our full days on the boat provide countless opportunities for photography with enough room for you and all your essential camera gear. Our guides are the best of the best, and they know just where to go to get us the best shots possible. Return at the end of each day to a wonderful meal at our clean and comfortable lodge and all of the accommodations. Electricity, Wi-Fi, hot showers, and plentiful wildlife around the lodge itself. I have multiple trip options available, so hit the link in the description below, choose which option works best for you, and join me in this breathtaking wilderness. Let's get back to it. Which lens is best for wildlife photography? Is a zoom lens or a prime lens better? These are questions that I have heard countless times in the wildlife photography community, and unfortunately, there is no right answer. There is no perfect lens out there, but there can be an ideal lens for a subject or a scenario that you're photographing. And when it comes to owls, 9 times out of 10, for me, I'm going to choose a zoom lens over a prime lens. Let's get into that. I love photographing great gray owls. Each autumn, I dedicate some time to photograph them in beautiful autumn colors before the landscape changes for the winter. These birds are a joy to photograph as they hunt through the forest, perched 1 minute, only to explode into action the next. Because of this sporadic behavior, I found that I much prefer to use a zoom lens when photographing these majestic birds. This allows me to zoom in and get the nice close-up portrait, and quickly zoom out to get the flight shots as they hunt or move to the next perch. Had I been using a prime lens while photographing this owl, positioned where I was, I would have clipped wings and the image would have been ruined. I use a zoom lens for the majority of my owl photography these days, and I rarely miss the shots that I want. So before you go into a certain scenario, think about your goal images. What images do you have in mind that you would like to capture? Think about the subject that you're photographing and the likely behavior that you're hoping to see. That way you can determine what lens and camera combination are going to be best for the situation. You can go in beforehand prepared rather than leaving a scenario wishing that you had brought a different lens instead. I've said it before, and I'm reminded of this next point every time I return home after a day spent in the field with the camera. Wildlife photography is all about persistence and repetition. If you're not willing to work on developing patience or not willing to do the same thing over and over and over again, you better find a new hobby. Nothing in wildlife photography will test your patience more than trying to photograph swallows in flight. These small birds are quick, erratic, and incredibly challenging to photograph. I've spent so much time over the years attempting to photograph them and come away with sharp images. Thousands of photos and countless hours later, I finally have some pictures that I'm proud of. This one in particular is one of my favorites as it represents the results of patience, persistence, and repetition. Because wildlife are so unpredictable, you never know what you might run into while out in the field. For this reason, I always keep my camera out and ready, and I'm constantly changing my settings as light conditions change to make sure that I'm properly exposed. Moving about in this way, I've been able to capture surprise encounters at a moment's notice, resulting in many images that I would have missed otherwise. My favorite picture that came from one of these moments was with a curious, energetic American martin, also called a pine martin. While hiking through the woods looking for owls one autumn afternoon, I heard a squirrel give an alarm call, signaling to me that there was a predator nearby. I looked carefully around and soon saw this curious martin looking me over from a nearby tree. The encounter was brief, but because my camera was ready to go, I didn't waste any time once I spotted him. And because I knew exactly what the squirrel was trying to tell me, I was able to quickly spot this elusive predator and capture one of my favorite images that I've ever taken. Some of the most pleasing images to look at are generally a whole recipe of conditions all mixed together, resulting in those images. This doesn't mean that the image needs to be overly complicated, only that they should each be well thought out and considered prior to pressing that shutter. Backgrounds, foregrounds, subject position, natural elements to include, and so much more should be taken into consideration. One of my favorite things to include into my photos as part of this recipe are natural colors. By adding natural colors into your photos, you can turn your images from good to great. Knowing how to read the light and determine what colors will be available as the sun moves and as conditions change is crucial as a wildlife photographer. What conditions are necessary to add oranges into your pictures? How about blues? Or what about yellow and golds? While photographing this beautiful lion on the Masai Mara, the conditions were changing just enough that I knew I would have the opportunity to add some beautiful soft colors into the image. By learning what conditions are needed for such results, you can quickly improve your wildlife photos. I know that I already had a bear photo in today's video, but one is just not enough. Each summer, while I'm out with these amazing animals on my Alaska bear workshops, we have countless opportunities for outstanding photos. We like to focus mainly on bears fishing and cubs playing, but we'll take advantage of whatever opportunities we come across. A couple of years ago, while returning to camp to get our afternoon lunch, we came across a mother bear and her cubs settling down for an afternoon nap. Had we stayed standing up and photographed them from the angle that we were, we would have had some pretty boring images. But instead, we got as low as we possibly could and photographed them from that angle instead. Not only were we now on eye level with the bears, but by doing so, the background changed completely, adding a certain moodiness and pop of color to the photo. Whenever possible, I like to shoot low on eye level or even lower at times. I feel like this adds a level of intimacy to your photo that can be really difficult to achieve otherwise. When I talk to other photographers about their photos and the process that they went through to get them, I realize that most of my favorites are those with a well thought out and sometimes even predetermined composition. It can be hard in the moment to stop taking pictures of some animal in front of you and reposition yourself for a potentially better composition. You run the risk of missing some action or even ending up in a worse spot than you were in before. But as you train your eye for these compositions, you'll be better at knowing beforehand if the risk of repositioning is worth it or not. While out with this stunning cheetah in Kenya's incredible Masai Mara, some sun rays briefly peeked through the clouds. We had just seconds to reposition ourselves for a better composition, and in so doing gave up any opportunity of any photo while we did reposition ourselves for the potential of something better. As we positioned ourselves so that the sun rays shone right down on this beautiful cat, we knew the risk had been worth it, and for me, this moment resulted in one of my favorite images to date. Constantly be on the lookout for a potentially better composition and be able to weigh that risk-reward factor of moving and repositioning for a potentially better shot. Unlike other types of photography, we're dealing with subjects that are unpredictable, can't verbally communicate with us, and generally just don't want us around. As wildlife photographers, this can make approaching wildlife to photograph them extremely difficult. Luckily, there's a secret to get closer to wildlife that most photographers don't know. When photographing wildlife, I found that it's best to let them approach you as they feel comfortable, rather than the other way around. Early on in my photography journey, I would try to get close to and pursue wildlife for those close-up images. I was able to get some decent pictures, but as I changed my strategy and stayed back, allowing the wildlife to get comfortable with me and then approach, I quickly realized that animals were getting closer to me than I ever thought possible. I was able to get more intimate images of natural expressions and behavior. While photographing a bobcat one day, I put this into practice. Initially, it was painful, as it seemed I'd never get close enough to this regal cat for decent photos. After what felt like an eternity of holding back, allowing the bobcat to get comfortable with me, he finally decided to get closer, and way closer than I ever thought possible. Soon, I couldn't zoom out anymore, but even so, I was able to get one of my favorite images that I've ever taken. This is how I approach the majority of wildlife scenarios that I photograph now, and let me tell you, this is the best way that I've found to get those close-up portrait or action shots. If you want some additional examples of how best to put this point into practice and capture some amazing moments out in nature, check this video out right here as I dive further into this subject and show you the best way that I found to photograph wildlife. Thank you so much for following along this week. I hope you've enjoyed. We'll see you next time.